Sri Lanka, an island situated south of the Indian subcontinent, is separated from the Indian mainland by a narrow strip of shallow water, the Pork Strait. With a land area of around 65,525 square kilometers and a total population of 20 million, the country is amongst the most densely populated in the world, ranking 19th in the order of high density. Sri Lanka is prone to floods, cyclones, droughts and landslides. Floods and landslides are more localized and seasonal, while droughts are more widespread. Cyclones are occasional. Sri Lanka, being a small island in the Indian Ocean, is influenced by two monsoons. Floods occur mostly due to monsoonal rains or low-pressure systems. Droughts are due to failure of monsoonal rains and are the most common among hazards in Sri Lanka. Other hazards are landslides, lightning strikes, coastal erosion, epidemics and effects of environmental pollution. In 2004, almost two-thirds of the Sri Lankan coast was affected by the Indian Ocean tsunami, highlighting the country's vulnerability to low-frequency but high-impact events. The information available about the people affected by natural disasters during the period 1974 to 2004 clearly identifies floods, drought, tsunami, storms and landslides as the most common in Sri Lanka.
Decentralized disaster risk management has been one of the key concepts that Practical Action has been working in the recent years. We believe that local governments should take the lead in decentralized disaster risk management simply because they are the formal leaders in that local area. Community has appointed them to be their leaders. Community and the local stakeholders will work with them because they have the authority to decide on what kind of development should take place in the local area and what sort of risks are there that needs to be mitigated, and when a disaster strikes, what to be done, and all those things need to be decided at the local level, and the local authorities have a role to play there.
The current PPA, Program Partnership Arrangements with the DFID, aim to reduce the disaster losses and contribute to the Hugo Framework and Millennium Development Goal.
The Resilient Cities campaign was launched by the United Nations International Strategy on Disaster Reduction (UNISDR) in 2010. The campaign aims to substantially reduce urban disaster risks and improve the well-being of urban communities. The campaign seeks to advocate city leaders and local government agencies to work together with local activists, grassroots networks and national authorities to implement the 10 essentials of making cities resilient. In July 2011, the Ministry of Disaster Management, together with UNISDR, launched the Resilient Cities program in Sri Lanka.
Basically in 2011, after the global meeting in Geneva, the special program was launched in worldwide to make the cities resilient. So city resilient program in Sri Lanka was launched in May 2011, and there are 15 councils participating as participant cities. And out of 3 councils are role model cities. So in Sri Lanka, the city resilient campaign is spearheaded by the Disaster Management Center with the participation of various NGOs and especially the Practical Action, who has taken the lead role in supporting the Disaster Management Center to take the city resilience program in 8 councils in Sri Lanka. So we have been working together to develop the methodology and the action to be taken in this resilience program.
Based on selection criteria, 5 local government organizations were selected and validated by an advisory committee as pilot projects under the campaign. Project activities implemented at each location include forming of local coordinating committee, training and capacity building, hazard mapping and risk assessment, conducting first validation meeting, refining hazard and risk assessment, prioritizing disaster risk reduction (DRR) actions, developing preliminary DRR plans, validating with stakeholders, developing detailed project proposals, submitting to Disaster Management Center (DMC) for possible funding, implementing DRR actions for making the city resilient.
எங்களுக்கு இந்த முறையில் 4 தரம் இதில் வெள்ளம் வந்து வைத்து எங்களுக்கு எங்களை புள்ள குட்டிகளை வச்சிருக்கிற மிச்சம் ஒரு கஷ்டமாக இருக்குது. அதால் நகர சபையும் அரசாங்கமும் இதை பார்த்து எங்களுக்கு ஒரு ஒழுக்கமான ஒரு வடிகான் எங்களுக்கு அமைச்சு தரணும்.
வெள்ளங்கள்லாம் வெள்ளத்தால் தண்ணியல் நிறைய வருது. இங்கே எங்கள் வீடு வயசெல்லாம் பாதிக்கப்படுது. அந்த தண்ணியல் வந்து குப்பை குளங்கள்லாம் கொட்டுறாங்க, கோழி எல்லாம் கொண்டு கொட்டுறாங்க. அதில் வந்து பூச்சி வட்டையெல்லாம் சேர்த்து இங்கே தருது, மாடும் கூட சேர்த்து தண்ணியெல்லாம் பாதிக்கப்பட்டீங்க. நாங்கள் அந்த தண்ணியை தான் குடிச்சிருக்கோம். நிறைய குப்பை குளங்கள் போட்டுறாங்க. வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா அவ்வளோங்க காணே இல்லை. இங்கே
பொதுவாக ஏறாவூரில் உள்ள பிரச்சனை என்னென்னு சொன்னால், ஏறாவூர் மக்களுக்கு வந்துட்டு ஒழுங்கான வடிகான் திட்டம் இல்லை. இந்த ஒழுங்கான வடிகான் திட்டம் இல்லாததால் ஏறாவூரில் மாறி காலங்களில் ஏறாவூர் கூடுதலாக வெள்ளத்தால் பாதிக்கப்படுது. இதில் முக்கியமான பிரச்சனை என்னென்னு சொன்னால், இயற்கையாக உள்ள ஏறாவூரில் உள்ள இயற்கையாக உள்ள வடிகான்கள் வந்துக்கிட்டு மக்களுடைய வளர்ச்சியினாலும் அடைக்கப்பட்டிருக்கிறதால, செயற்கையான வடிகான்கள் குறைய இருக்கிறதால பொதுவாக ஏறாவூரில் பெரும்பாலான பிரதேசம் இந்த வெள்ளத்தால் ஃப்ளட்டால் பாதிக்கப்படுது.
UNISDR, when they started the global campaign for resilient city, it gave me a great opportunity for me to sign into this campaign, because this campaign is going to help us to reduce the risk in disasters whatever we face. Having signed, we saw plenty of opportunities to make my city resilient.
இது தொடர்பாக நகர சபை வந்துக்கிட்டு பொதுவான அதாவது ஒழுங்கான ஒரு ட்ரைனேஜ் சிஸ்டத்துக்குரிய ஒரு வரைபடத்தை தயாரித்து வச்சிருந்தாலும் அது இன்னமும் நடைமுறைப்படுத்தப்படாத நிலைமையில் இருக்குது. ஆகவே இந்த ஏறாவூர் மக்கள் சார்பாக நாங்கள் உங்கள்கிட்ட அனர்த்த முன்னெச்சரிக்கை நிலையத்தால் அனர்த்த முன்னாயத்துக்கு கீழே இந்த ஏறாவூருக்கு ஒழுங்கான ஒரு வடிகான் அமைப்பை நீங்கள் பெற்றுத்தரணும் என்பதை மிக தாழ்மையோடு கேட்டுக்கொள்கின்றோம்.
The current Program Partnership Agreements, PPA, work also contributed to upscale several other valuable project outcomes, the most significant being the contribution made to finalize the Integrated Development Plan for the Ambalanthota city. The Practical Action Project team worked with the Urban Development Authority, UDA, to assess future climate and disaster risks on proposed development and land use plans in Ambalanthota and strategize sustainable development options.
නාගරික සංවර්ධන අධිකාරිය විදියට අපෙන් කෙන රාජකාරිය අතර සුවිශේෂ රාජකාරියක් තමයි සංවර්ධන සැලසුම් පිළියෙල කිරීම. ඒකෙදී ඉඩම් පරිහරණ රටාව ගැන අපි විශේෂ අවධානයක් යොමු කරන්න ඕන. අදාළ ප්‍රදේශයේ තියෙන ආපදා තත්ත්වයන් සම්බන්ධයෙන් කරුණු එක් රැස් කරලා ඒ ආපදා පවතින ප්‍රදේශ මොනවද ඒ සඳහා ආපදාවම කරමින් සංවර්ධනය කරන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා අපි සැලසුම් සකස් කරනවා. එහිදී ඉඩම් පරිහරණ රටාව අනුව අපි කලාපීයකරණ සැලසුම් හදනවා. එහෙම අපි කලාපීයකරණයකින් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ ඒ ප්‍රදේශයේ සංවර්ධන කටයුතු පාලනයකින් සහ විධිමත්ව කරන්න. ඒ ආපදා සහිත ප්‍රදේශ ඒ විදියට මෙන්න මේ කටයුතු තමයි මේ ප්‍රදේශයේ දෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා අපි මහ ජනතාව දැනුවත් කරාට පස්සේ ඒ ප්‍රදේශයට වෙන අවදානම් හානි ජනතාවට වෙන දේපල හානි ඒ වගේ දේවල් අඩු කරගෙන සංවර්ධනයේ පාලනයකින් යුතුව කරගෙන යන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා.
සුරක්ෂිත නගරයක් නිර්මාණය කිරීමේ වැඩපිළිවෙල යටතේ අපි ආපදාවල් හඳුනාගෙන තියෙනවා. ඒ පිළිබඳව ආපදා අවම කිරීමේ වැඩපිළිවෙලක් අපි දැනට හඳුනාගෙන තිබෙනවා. මෙම විධිමත් කාණු පද්ධතියක් නොමැතිවීමෙන් නගරයේ වැසි ජලය සහ ගංගාතුර ජලය බැස යාමේ අවදානමක් තියෙනවා.
Advanced Geographical Information Systems (GIS) tools were employed to predict future flooding scenarios and assess its impacts on proposed land use. Following this, the Practical Action Team and UDA, through a multi-stakeholder forum, assessed the local vulnerabilities of the communities and came up with recommendations to minimize future disaster risks. The Urban Development Authority worked closely with Practical Action also to transform future land use and implement an integrated approach to development planning. Practical Action initiated a research program on development-induced disasters in 2010 to assess the impacts of development projects on changing disaster risk scenarios. An important policy recommendation was to incorporate a disaster assessment process within EIA. The new policy document for the local governments provides space for the local governments to start disaster risk reduction (DRR) programs, and on a suggestion made by the project team, Chairman and members of the Urban Council of Erabur, a separate budget line for disaster management has been incorporated.
Final expectation of the program is to develop a solid and sound project proposal to get necessary funds from Treasury or any other organization to make my city resilient.